Hello and welcome to the Code Me Studios YouTube channel. My name's Matt and this is the first episode in hopefully a relatively short YouTube tutorial series. I'm going to be teaching you sort of beginner to intermediate level C# and then we're going to be moving on to some Unity game development in 3D and 2D. If there's anything else that you want to see, please do let me know in the comments. Feel free to like the video and subscribe. Hope you enjoy. Okay, so firstly, now that we've got the new project open, you're going to be met with a little screen, something like this. It's just going to say console.writeline hello world. That's the first line of code you're ever going to see if you open up a brand new console application project. Now, what this means is it's going to write the line hello world onto the console. Right, very simple. There's another form of writing to the console, and that is simply console.write. Now, you might be thinking, well, what's the difference between console.writeline and console.write? Well, console.write will just simply print that text to the screen. Console.writeline will print that text to the screen and then put a new line at the end of it. So, if we were to run this line of code here, as you can see on the screen, it's going to print hello world, and on a new line it's then going to run this line of code and say hello world again. So if we were to do it the other way around, like this, where it's console.write and then console.writeline, as you can see on the screen, it's going to give us something very different. It's going to say hello world on the same thing, because the new line comes after it's printed, which you might not understand that necessarily at the moment, but if you get practical and you do this yourself, have a little go on your project, try out different combinations of writing console.write, console.writeline, switch them around. You should understand a bit more what I mean. You do need to get a bit hands-on with these tutorials. I'm not just going to spoon feed everything to you. I will give you a set of information, and then I will run a bit of code, and I'll show you a bit of code that sort of summarizes what we've learned in that episode and previous episodes, and then I'll give you something to do as well. Okay, so on to the next thing. Data types. I've got here some of the most common data types you'll probably see: integer, float, double, decimal, bool, character and string. Now, if you've done no form of coding before and you know nothing, no technical theory, nothing about computers, you probably won't necessarily recognize any of these things, apart from maybe integer and decimal. So int and decimal. So an integer is a whole number, positive or negative. A float is a number with a floating point or a decimal point. A double is also a decimal point number. A decimal is also a decimal point number. However, there is a difference. Okay, firstly there's a difference in how you declare the variables, how you create them. So once you've put your float or your double or your decimal, and then you've written the name of the variable, you've then got to define what that value is. So here we've got it equal to 3.1415927f. So the f means that it's going to be a float number and not a decimal. An M means it's going to be a decimal number and not a double. Okay, but for most C# compilers, double will be the default. So if you were to set a variable to 3.14, that will be a double. If you put 3.14f, it's a float. 3.14m is a decimal. The next data type we're going to look at is a boolean, or a bool in this case. A boolean is simply true or false. It can't be set to anything else. It's just true or it's false. So is alive, in this case, is true. If you can use these sorts of things for validations, checking, or just true or false answers. The next one we're going to look at is a character, or char in this case. Don't know what a character is. It's basically just any letter, symbol, number. That's what a character is. Any individual one. So in this case, we've set it to S. A string is just a sequence of characters. So again, numbers, letters, symbols. So you could have subscribe, you could have
you could have 1, 2, 3 in there, you could have exclamation mark in there, you could have an @ symbol. Okay, so now we're just going to quickly have a look at declaring a variable. If you couldn't already tell or summarize from just showing you the data types, declare a variable by saying, well, firstly, what data type do you want the variable to be? In my case, I want it to be a string, so I'm just going to write string. And then you need to put the name of your variable. So in this case, I'm just going to call it player name. And then you need to equal that to something. So as it's given you there, you can have string.empty, which just means this is set to nothing. So there's player name is blank at the moment. You can set that later on, or you can do something like this. So you can equal it to, in double quotation marks, hello, like that. So strings are defined using double quotation marks. A character is defined using single quotation marks like this. And as you can see here, booleans and numbers don't have any quotation marks, they're just the number and then either it's true or false. Okay, now we're going to have a quick look at variable naming conventions. We're going to just have a quick look at the top 3, in my opinion, most common naming conventions. So we've got camel case, Pascal case, and screaming snake case. You don't really have to remember the name of them, just what they look like. So a camel case is the first word is all lowercase, and then any following words, the first letter is a capital and there's no spaces. Pascal case, as you can see, is the exact same thing, but they're all the first all the letters are all the first letters of each word, sorry, are capitals and there's no spaces. And as you can see here, screaming snake case is all capitals with underscores between them. So I'll just give you a quick demonstration of what that might look like. So int player health equals 10. Do the same in Pascal case. That's going to look like this. So do that in Pascal case, it's going to look like this. Do it in screaming snake case, it's going to look like this. Now, another thing that I would recommend while doing your coding and naming variables, please make your variable names something simple, easily recognizable, and not too vague. Right? So for instance here, I've got a double variable called max health. Right? Anyone who sees that is going to look at that and go, okay, that's a variable that stores the maximum health. Right? I've got these comments here that describe them. So maximum health and minimum health. To define a comment, you use / like that, or you can do a block comment by doing \* and then at the end of it doing * \, and then anything after that is run like normal code. Okay. If you name something that's vague or random like this, okay, and you don't have a comment there, alright, you're not going to have any clue what that is come a later date. You might know what it is at the moment, but come a day later, a week later, or if anyone else looks at your code and wants to update it or infer it or have a look what's going on, they're not going to have a clue. Right? Here, we've got double max health equals 100. Therefore, you know that the maximum health is 100. You then look at this, as does whatever that says. Right? I've not got any clue what that is. You're not got any clue what that is. If you're coding, you need your code to look. You need to understand what your variables are, right? Because although calling them whatever you want is going to be useful at the time, it's just quick. It's not going to be very useful at a later date. Now, a top tip will be, and any coder will tell you, any programmer, whatever, will tell you to just comment your code. It takes a few extra seconds. It will save you hours, if not days later on. If you're doing a massive project and you don't comment on anything, if you're coming back to update that at a later date, you're not going to have a clue what's going on. You have to read through it or try and work out what's going on. Whereas if you give it a comment, it's just a simple thing. So for instance, stores the maximum health. Right? You're then going to know that that variable stores the maximum health. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is taking an input from the user. So as you can see here, we've got console.readline. This is how you input from the user. So console.readline. As you can see on screen, if we run console.readline on its own, it prompts the user for an input, but then does nothing with it, because we're not doing anything with it. We're just console.readlining. Console.readline will, by default, take an input as a string. So no matter what you enter, you can enter true, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Asda, pizza, whatever it might be. It's just going to take it all as a string. So if you want to take a user input that is a string, you just make a variable that's a string, and then you do that like that. So string name equals console.readline. So as you can see here, we're going to run it. It's going to then take console.readline, so an input, and then it's going to store that in the name string, in the variable string. But as you can see, it still doesn't do anything. It just ends the program. But that's because we've got nothing else after it. You can store that data like that if you like, or you can print it to have a visual demonstration. So like that. So console.readline, and then the name of the variable, and then it will print that variable to the screen. So as you can see here, if we then enter that, type in our name, and then run it, and then enter, sorry, as you can see, it then prints our name back to us. You can do that. You can print any variables onto the console just by doing the same thing, but just change the name of the variable to obviously match yours. Now, as I said, taking an input using console.readline automatically takes it as a string. So if you want to take a user's age in a number and store it in an int variable, so an integer, and you did just console.readline, as you can see on the screen, you'll get an error. And that is because you can't put a string into an integer box, right? So if you had a cardboard box and you cut a square into it and you tried putting a massive hexagon in it, it's not going to fit. They're not compatible. But you can do, there are two main ways of converting it. So you can do int.parse console.readline, and then that will pass the input as an integer. So that just means it's going to do its best to convert it into an integer. There's another way of doing that. So you can do this, convert.toInt32 console.readline. That's going to do the same thing as int.parse. They're synonymous. Now we're going to have a quick look at an if statement. Variable called password, and it's a string, and we've just set it to ABC. Okay, and then this is how you say yes. So this is how you set out an if statement, or in this case an if else. There is an else if statement, but we're not going to look at that today. We'll leave that for another day. But as you can see here, an if statement is set out like this. So the keyword if, and then in brackets we have our condition. So in this case, if this variable password is equal to ABC, we're then going to run the code that is inside these two squiggly brackets. So in this case, console.writeline welcome. Otherwise, we're then going to run console.writeline incorrect password. So as you can see here, if we run the app, because password is set to ABC, it's going to print to the terminal, print to the console, welcome. And so as you can see, if we run it again with the password not set to ABC, it will output incorrect password. As you can see here, I've tried combining a few different things that we've learned in today's video. So printing to the console with variables, taking a user input that's a string, taking a user input that we don't want to be as a string, and we've got an if and an else statement. So if we run this here, we can see there it says, hello there, what is your name? We're going to enter my name or your name, whatever it might be. So Matt, nice to meet you, Matt. Did you like the video? In this case, I'm going to say yes. Or so true. And it's going to say, cool. We're going to run it again just to show you the different outcome. If you put in your name, or my name in this case, Matt, and then false, I'll tell you to bugger off. So as you can see, it worked.
Okay, so that's the end of our first episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. If you need any help with anything that you've seen in this video, or you have anything else you want to talk about in the comments, please do drop me a comment and I'll have a look. I'm going to set you a little challenge. So I want you to make a little application, and it's going to have a hard-coded variable for a username and a password. And it's going to ask the user to enter a username and password, and if they both match, then it will print something like welcome in or something like that. And if they don't both match, then it's just going to print invalid username or password. And I'll provide code and a video, like a quick little answer to that at the beginning of the next episode. So please do like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.